Coach Erick here, and like I said earlier, I wanted to make this video on intermittent fasting, right? Some of the ins and outs of it, and basically, some of the more common misconceptions about it, right? And to cover a couple topics, but the first thing I want to point out is that intermittent fasting, may or may not be for you, right? Certainly, there's not a cookie cutter approach to one dietary approach or nutrition approach, or even an exercise approach working for every single person, every single demographic out there. Everybody's individual, everybody's unique, has unique circumstances, starting points, and goals, right? So it's not probably going to be for everybody, but I do encourage everybody to at least read into it, or if it sounds interesting or beneficial, to at least try it. And the reason why this video is coming up is because here on the Lumen board, the Lumen page, it's one of the most commonly talked about things, right? I think that says a lot for itself right there. If it wasn't something that could be successful for a wide range of people, probably wouldn't be talked about so much, right? So, a couple things I'm gonna cover here, starting off with what it is. So, intermittent fasting is essentially just a form of what's called time-restricted feeding, TRF, right? So you're just restricting the time of day that you're taking in calories. And the way I always explain this to my clients is, think about it like this. From the average time that you wake up, say if you wake up at 7 a.m., you're a 7 a.m. person. Let's go with the normal 9 to 5 worker here. So you wake up at 7 a.m. and most people have calories within the first, hour to 2 hours of being awake. And then you look at the opposite end of the day, and let's say you get to bed by 11 p.m., to give you 8 hours of sleep. And you look and you see most people have some sort of calories in towards the end of the day within the last hour or two. Whether it's, their dinner, a late night snack, a protein shake before bed, a glass of wine, whatever the case was, right? Usually most people have some form of calories in within the last hour or two of them sleeping. So when you look at their day, the 16 hours they're awake, you're essentially looking at a 14, 15 hour calorie spread there. And therein lies the problem for a lot of people, because what you're essentially doing is you're taking a 24-hour day that your body is exposed to, and there's conflicting thoughts on how your body views time anyways, but that's for another video. But you're basically taking your body and you're preoccupying it with the breakdown and digestion of food, calories, nutrients, the absorption of nutrients. You're asking it to do that for at least 14 to 16 hours a day, right? If that's your calorie spread. So while that's happening, your body has to put other things on the back burner, things that should be on one of the front burners, right? Things like regulating hormones, regulating blood pressure, there's a whole host of things. But your body has to kind of stop what it's doing and make nutrition, absorption, and food breakdown the priority, because that food has to get through your system. It can't just sit there all day, right? For anybody that's familiar with even basic like body science and all that stuff, we're operating most people at about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit on the inside. Not sure what that is Celsius, but 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's damn near 100 degrees, right? So, if you were to leave food out on the sidewalk in a 100-degree environment for an extended amount of time, after a while that food would not be consumable, right? It would be spoiled, it would be rotten, it would be degraded. It's just not safe for human consumption. So by that same logic, our body has to, whenever we take in calories of any form, make nutrition, the breakdown of food, the absorption of calories, a top freaking priority. It's just how it goes. So what intermittent fasting is so good at is basically getting people to time restrict their feeding window, and it limits the time where they're actually consuming calories throughout the day, right? Now, why that's so important is because whenever you take in calories of any form, whether it's carbs, protein, or fat, it affects it to different degrees, but anytime you take in any form of calories, I say again, any form of calories, any macronutrient, you're going to spike your insulin, right? Again, to different degrees, but all of them can spike your insulin. So when you spike your insulin, insulin is a storage signaling hormone. To break it down into layman's terms, in the simplest, analogy possible, you take in calories, or your body senses the calories coming in, insulin goes up, cell doors around the body open up, and if you got good nutrients, and by good nutrients I mean clean food, hopefully not over processed, Just the cleaner the better. But if you got clean food coming in and in a proper amount, right, depending on what your body needs for your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate, your AMR, your active metabolic rate, however many calories a day your body burns with those, once you know that, your body is basically saying, okay, do I have enough food or do I have too much? Because your body's going to sway one way or the other, right? It's either going to be able to utilize it in the amount of time, i.e. good portions, or it's not going to be able to utilize it all in that time frame, i.e. over portioning, right? And then you have a high likelihood to store that as fat if you don't have some type of muscle building hypertrophy going on in your body at that time. For people who are inactive or low activity level, I could almost guarantee you don't have that benefit to kind of keep in your back pocket, right? So portion control is going to be key. Knowing how many calories in versus calories out, super key. Anyways, getting back to the fasting, by limiting the amount of times that, or the windows essentially that you have an insulin spike, say if you're doing a 16 and 8 hour fast where you're fasting for 16 hours and you're eating within an 8 hour window. Well, now those insulin spikes are only affecting you for an 8 hour chunk of the day, right? And even cooler is that within those 8 hours, you're only going to get insulin spikes whenever you take in calories. So for somebody that has all of a sudden their partitioned calories for their daily allotment, if you have it broken down 5 times within that 8 hour span, so you got 3 meals and 2 snacks maybe, well then that's 5 separate times that your body is going to be introduced to calories within that window. You're going to have 5 insulin spikes. Okay, that's good, right? But if you cut it down to say 3 insulin spikes by maybe 2 meals and 1 snack, now you got 3 versus 5 insulin spikes. 3 is gooder, right? So the amount of time that you have insulin affecting your body for the day, the shorter the better. Again, if you're trying to avoid that potential storage of excess calories, and excess garbage calories at that, which is just going to manifest as fat that you want to burn later. So you're definitely watching that, right? Now, so essentially what I'm saying is that if you do it the right way, fasting can be a magic bullet, right? So that's what it is. It's a form of time restricted feeding. It can be for everybody or it might not be for somebody. It's highly effective when implemented correctly and consistently. And those are just some of the things that fasting is. So let me tell you what it is not, right? Like I just said a little while ago, it's a magic bullet. Well, it's not one that fires itself, right? So you're gonna have to do the dirty work on this to get that magic bullet, to leave that chamber and actually get the desired result, which is, for most people probably recomping their body in some way, or for the people that are really in the know about the benefits of fasting, trying to seek, mental clarity or spiritual benefits, or another huge one, and I'll get into that in a couple minutes a little bit more, is autophagy, which is basically the breakdown and turnover of cells that are no longer serving your body at all or in optimal capacity. Your body basically targets them for deletion and you start over, right? That's where the DNA comes in. So this magic bullet doesn't fire itself. You have to do the work. So some of the major obstacles that I see with fasting is that it can be hard for people to know, like, what kind of schedule should I do? Should I do 16 and 8? Should I do 18 and 6? Should I do 20 and 4? And then once you start getting shorter than 20 and 4, now you're in that what's called the OMAD category, 1 meal a day, where you're essentially fasting for 22 hours plus out of the day and just eating one big old meal to get those calories in, right? And if you're playing that game, you better know how many calories you have going out the back end, for your BMR and your AMR combined, and your total calories expended, because that's a dangerous game to play if you're only going to eat once a day and you don't know how many calories you're burning. I think that goes without saying. So it gets confusing for people to decide, like, what kind of window they're going to stick with. So I will tell you, one of the common misconceptions with people in fasting is they think that they're doing a certain window and they're really not, right? And this is actually kind of the whole point of making this video. Think about it this way. Say you have that example of a 16 and 8 hour fast, right? And for just ease of imagination, we're gonna make this person's eating window when they're taking in their calories 12 p.m., so noon to 8 p.m. That's pretty fair, right? The rest of the time, they're not eating a damn thing. So if that person eats their calories, again, it doesn't matter if they're on a 1,500 calorie diet within that window or 3,000, 4,000 calories a day within that window. If they eat their last meal and their last meal is their biggest meal, or if their last meal has a lot of fiber in it, or if their last meal has a denser, thicker type of protein, you know, so think whey concentrate instead of whey isolate or whey hydroslate, and think on the extreme end, you know, calcium caseinate, right? You're really slow digesting protein. I mean, that's engineered to be as slow digesting as possible for continual muscle feeding, right? Different video. But if you're taking in something like that at the end of your eating window, great, you stopped eating at 8 o'clock, but your body still going on calories for hours, right? Hours on end after that last meal. Now, by that same logic, if you flip it around and you try to eat your smallest meal or your quickest digesting meal at the end of your fast, then yes, your body gets into a situation where it utilizes those calories, they're expended, they're accounted for quicker. Your body goes into that extended period of time without food, and then it goes into that point where it's like 10 to 12 hours later after you're tapped out of calories when your body says, well, dang, my BMR, my basal metabolic rate dictates that I need calories even at rest 24/7. This person, he or she hasn't eaten in 10 to 12 hours. Where do I get the extra calories from, right? And then that's when you start getting the body to basically go into lipolysis, which is the breakdown of fat. So fat first has to be targeted for release through some means, right? There's a bunch of different means to get that started. Then it has to be mobilized, right? Which is where activity comes in. You got to get that lymph system going. And then it has to be oxidized, right? It has to be, once it gets to where it's going, it has to be burned up. So that's where the activity complements nicely with that, which is why people that fast effectively lose weight. People that fast effectively and work out lose more weight and keep more muscle, right? That's just how it is. Strength training is never going to be a bad thing. Healthy endurance training is never going to be a bad thing. It's only going to help that fasting process out. So, like I said, scheduling can be a big deal with the intermittent fasting because a lot of people won't necessarily know, like, how long should I fast or when should I fast. But the other thing I would say is a big consideration to make is that they don't take enough water in, right? So when you go into fasting, if you go into your intermittent fasting and you sleep through most of your fast, that's cool. But when you wake up, you might still have a couple hours to go till you can have your first meal. You're going to find that you're naturally going to want to drink more water, right? Because you're trying to keep that stomach full and you're trying to not think about food. So when people fail to do that, they usually have a tougher time with fasting. You know, maybe they got this mental block with water. They don't like drinking a lot of water. They're just not in the habit of it, whatever. But now your body's not getting hydration from food because you're not eating, right? And we get a lot of our hydration from food. And you're not drinking enough water. So you're just going to be one of those people that thinks, oh, I can't fast, it's not for me. When really you just have crappy water discipline. You need to drink more water, right? So scheduling, not knowing how long to make your fast or when to put your fast into your day, and not drinking enough water are two things that derail most people's fasting efforts. How long and how often to do it, that depends on the person, right? That could be a whole video in and of itself, so I'm not going to go into that too much here. Just know that different strokes for different folks, right? So I could tell you firsthand example, you know, I've been doing intermittent fasting, a consistent near daily practitioner for about 4 years on end now. And I got into it just to drop my blood pressure, right? And 48 accidental lost pounds later, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And had I not been walking around as probably an over-muscular person at the time, I wouldn't have had any weight to lose. But then again, you know, losing that much weight, I lost a lot of fat, but I also lost a lot of muscle tissue. And so I had to figure out how to gain that back, you know, in a healthy, sustainable way, with fasting still being a part of my life, because I still use fasting primarily, not only for mental clarity, but to keep my blood pressure down, right? That is a proven benefit of effective intermittent fasting, and that's huge for me, because I don't want to be on blood pressure meds at 35. So as far as fasting and working out, right? people can do it. I know I used to be one of those people. I was so used to eating carbs before my workouts and thinking that's what got me amped, that I was like, there's no way I could work out on an empty stomach. And then I do a lot of activity on an empty stomach these days. I say probably 90 to 95% of my total training is completely fasted, right? And I run a lot and I lift a lot. So enhancers, there's different supplements that you could take to help enhance the effectiveness of your fast. Things like apple cider vinegar. Its implementation in fasting would, again, probably be another video in and of itself. But things like green tea, carnitine, L-carnitine, there's just a bunch of things. I could go on and on about supplementation alone, but there's a bunch of different natural, non-stimulant laden supplements that can help enhance your fast. Now, when I do my consults with my clients, or even when I was doing the one-on-one training thing, I would tell the clients, don't go to all those tricks right off the bat, right? Because if you start something as powerful as fasting and you get it right, that's going to help you out a ton on its own. But if you throw all those other enhancers in there from the jump, you don't really have too many other notches that you could take up that power of the fasting, and you're relying on all that help from the get-go. But if you get into the pattern, you experience the benefits, you may not even need an extra booster. You might be great just doing it naturally, or if you become very knowledgeable about what you're doing, you might decide that you want to implement one or two of those enhancers on and off to help you do certain things with your fasting, right? For anybody that doesn't know out there, one of the primary benefits and one of the other main reasons I do intermittent fasting is because it's been shown to raise your growth hormone, right? And that's where the body stress comes in. When you get into these little bit longer fasts, or you work out in a fast and you put your body in another excitable stress state. But you do get that boost in growth hormone, and growth hormone is muscle sparing and fat burning promoting, right? And so that's good too for anybody trying to keep a lean physique naturally. So I'll leave you guys with this. You know, if you guys want to find more information, super credible, research-backed, I think that's what they say. It seems like it. You know, type information from people. You know, look for somebody like Dr. Jason Fung on YouTube, Thomas DeLauer on YouTube. He's, you know, been super instrumental in my own journey. Dr. Erick Berg on YouTube, and then Dr. Andrew Huberman on YouTube and on Spotify. He has a podcast called Huberman Lab, and he approaches basically neuroscience as it pertains to, that's his specialty, neuroscience. He talks about it as it pertains to health and fitness and keeping depression down, and basically all the things that everybody watching this video should be interested in, right? So those are some good people to follow. As for myself personally, you know, a lot of you guys know I'm a fitness consultant, right? I'm a full-time fitness consultant now. So I've moved away from the personal training. I've been a personal trainer just over 12 years. I've been a group fitness instructor for Orange Theory, for F45, which are two pretty good sized companies. So I have an extensive HIIT training background, an extensive group training fitness background, personal training background, and more importantly than any of that, or than any alphabet that I think you could put next to somebody's name, is I am one of those people that walks it like I talk it, right? I live it. So, you know, a lot of times people think that you can't combine fasting and lifting. Well, I do it every day. A lot of times people think that you can't combine lifting and running. I do it every day. I'm just over 100 kilograms and I'm an ultra runner. I run for fun, right? Miles on miles, and I do it for mental clarity, and I do it for just a myriad of reasons. But that's my thing. And you don't see medium distance runners, let alone long distance or ultra runners, at 100 kilos plus, especially if they're natural, right? But that's kind of my shtick. That's my thing. That's my background. And how I've gotten here to this point where I can do this and not wreck my body, not get injured, is because I've messed it up a bunch of times, right? I've had a long time to get it wrong a bunch of times. So anyways, this video went a little bit longer than I anticipated, but hopefully somebody got something out of this. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. If you guys want me to cover any more topics, let me know. Like I said, I do this stuff for a living, so not discrediting anybody else, but credibility is everything, right? So I believe that our body is our own advertisement. I believe that the way we articulate things is everything, and it doesn't matter which